And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
It's kind of funny because I never have played Diskwars. Diskwars was originally designed by Tom Jolly, produced for Fantasy Flight ages ago, and I knew that it involved these discs and that there was some sort of flipping thing, but I didn't know much more about that. I've also never played Warhammer. I have played Warhammer 40,000 quite a bit, but I never got into the Warhammer because I don't know anybody who can afford both hobbies, so you have to pick one or the other. So they came out with this Warhammer Diskwars, and I was interested because the Warhammer universe is an interesting one. It's actually more interesting of a universe to me than the Warhammer 40,000 one is. And the Diskwars, I heard it was a cool idea. I heard that it was good, so I was certainly eager to pick this one up and try it out. I also like Battlegrounds Fantasy Warfare, which is a game that uses cards, so I thought, hey, a game that uses discs for units is pretty cool because you can get lots of them, and I don't have to worry about the miniatures breaking. Let's take a look at the game. Now the game is played on a 3x3 area, and I have a table that's 3 feet wide here on the inside and longer than that, so I just play on a portion on the table. And what players are going to do is they're going to draw some terrain cards and draft these cards, and each person will pick a terrain, and if you take that terrain, you will be able to put that terrain on the battlefield, and you can use either side. And then you leave the card next to the board so people remember what that terrain means. So there might be some pieces of terrain that are out there that are included in the box. And then players are going to build an army. These are all the units that come with the game. You have your orcs, and then you have your forces of evil, and you have the elves and the good. Now these are forces of order. So you can mix regiments, and our regiment will be all one type, but I can mix a regiment of these guys and these guys, or these and these together. That's destruction or order. And then once you decide, what side you're going to play, you're going to pick a hero from that side. So here we have a disc. This is a hero disc, and at the bottom here you can see that it shows you how many points that hero has to build a regiment with. Other people, when you take the normal units, you'll see that this is how many points they cost. So this guy costs 5 points, and Volkmar can take 36 points worth. So therefore he's going to he has 31 points left to build his army. And there's some other restrictions, like you can't have more of these giant discs, and some discs cost more. You can see this volley gun here costs 10, while this steam tank here costs 13. So there's different kinds of units that you can have. Now a quick rundown on a unit. Each unit has a movement. That's how far the unit can move. This is their attack and defensive attack, offensive attack, defensive attack. That's how many hit points they have. That's their costs for the army. This shows what army they're affiliated with. And then they have special abilities on here. There's all different sorts of special abilities that a card can have. Some people also have shields, like this leader here has a shield. That means when he takes 5 hit points, he then takes a wound, in essence. Once most units take a wound, they're out of the game. But he can take a wound, and then you have to hit him with 5 more points before then he's actually dead. Also, leaders have another number here which shows how many command cards they get. Now what players are going to be doing is they're going to be using some deployment cards. And they're going to place these deployment cards on the board on their side. You'll get 2 of them, or you'll get 1 for each regiment that you have. And these deployment cards will show you how many units can deploy in that area in front of them. And you can deploy in medium range, and so you have a small amount of area to deploy discs. This is short, medium, and long range. This is also used for ranged attacks and magic and things like that. So players are going to deploy some of their forces on the board, the rest they'll keep in reserve, and then the game begins. In each round of the game, players are going to have a phase where they're going to be playing these command cards like this. So each player is going to play a command card, and they're going to compare what it says on these command cards. So this one, for example, says steady, and this one says devious. Now, which one goes first depends on a little rock, paper, scissors chart that the rulebook has, where devious beats bold, bold beats steady, steady beats devious. I remember DBS, but I'm going to have to print out a card or something because we keep forgetting. Everything beats slow. So whoever plays the one that beats the other one, in this case, steady beats devious, then whoever plays a steady card goes first. This lets them activate 3 of their units. This will let them activate 4, which is better than 3, but this also gives you a special ability that your hero can have. So players are trying to pick a card that will help them, and also a card that will allow them to move units in the best way possible. And there's all sorts of cards here. Here we got Stall, and Storm of Chaos, and Speed, and Arcane Attack, and Strength of Gork. Now this one only, I mean, anybody can use it, but you wouldn't use it unless you had an Orc army, because this basically lets you put a token on somebody, and that will give them a 2 attack and 1 defensive attack until the end of the round. So a lot of them actually come with their own tokens that will match the different command cards when you play them. And there's all sorts of them, and you get 2 for each regiment that you have, so you'll start a round with 4 of them in hand to pick from. Now after activating a unit, you're going to put a marker on it to show that that unit's been activated, and you can't activate a unit again until everything's been activated, and that will end the round. You'll pull them off and so on. One of the main things you'll do is you'll move. Now in this person, these flamers, he can move 4. Movement is very simple. You simply flip the disc over and over again, 2, 3, and when I flip it, I can rotate it and make it go a different direction, 4. So there's different ways that you can go. If there's another unit and you land on top of that unit, you have that unit pinned down and they can't move unless for some reason they've been unpinned. And multiple units can pin the same person, and sometimes you'll have sort of like a big attack going on. This is called a scrum, where there's a whole bunch of discs that are involved in this. Other units have ranged attack. Well, let's take a look here at this siege tank here. Or steam tank, I'm sorry. This has an impact of 3, and we'll talk about those in a second. But he has range attack there. He has long, medium, and short. So depending on what range the enemy that he's shooting at, and some have siege range, which lets him shoot basically anywhere on the board, he's going to roll dice, whatever it shows you here. So you can see in long range he rolls 1, while in short range he rolls 3 dice. So let's say we're in short range, and he rolls these. X's are misses. This symbol here is a miss usually, unless it specifically tells you that it's something different. And then he has hits. You have regular hits and critical hits. Now regular hits don't work when you hit something that's in siege range. So if you're shooting all the way across the board, these hits don't count. Otherwise, they cause a hit, and then the disc itself will tell you, for example, here you can see a short range does 3 damage for each hit you have to the target. Critical hits are the same as a regular hit, except they work even in siege range, and they put an activation token on the person that you're shooting at. Finally, there's an arrow, which is kind of like a scatter. You have to realize that range stuff doesn't work that well always, and so it will hit the nearest target. So you'll find the nearest disc to the one that you're shooting at, you'll roll the die again, and you could miss. If you roll another arrow, it's a miss, but you could hit that target also and do damage immediately. There's other things that players can do, like cast magic. Magic is like range, but it hits more automatically. And there's other special abilities that you can do. There's things called empower. Some people can empower others, where they put a token on them, and it basically adds 1 to their stats, attacking, and hit points. But at the end of a round, after everyone's played, you play a command card, you activate that many units. If there is a tie, let's say both players play a steady card, whoever has this token gets to go first. And then you do ranged attacks and different things with your discs. Eventually, all the discs will have activation tokens on them, and then everyone gets all their command cards back that they played. But before they do that, we do close combat. So the person on the top of a disc is considered the attacker. The person on the bottom is a defender. So the attacker does the black number of damage, so he would do 4 damage to these people, and then the defender would do that much damage to the guy on top. So he would do 4 damage, and the defender would do 4 damage back to him. And there's some ways to mitigate damage. Some people take half damage and stuff, but for the most part, that's what's going to happen. And then you'll remove discs. Now, if it's a scrum, you might have to start at the top and work your way down to get through all the discs, and some discs will be removed. Otherwise, they'll stay in combat with the one on top pinning the other one down. The game will end after 5 rounds, usually, unless you're playing a special scenario. Each player will have a card that gives them an objective on the bottom of the card. So here, I get 5 points for each enemy hero casualty, while this person gets 1 victory point for every enemy casualty. You also draw one of these cards at the beginning of a scenario and ignore the bottom and look at the top of it, and that does something special during this scenario. So here, Rain of Arrows, missile discs do extra damage. They roll an extra die during attacks. So that's essentially how the game is played. Now let's take a look at the factions. Alright, first we have the Empire, and I already showed you the steam tank, which is a really cool, it actually can move one and has different ranges that it can shoot at. At the same time, you have this gun here, the volley gun, which can't move at all, but can shoot pretty much anywhere on the board. However, if you roll doubles, basically double X's, then you take a damage. So that's kind of a neat thing to have. And that's not all. I mean, this is the Empire, and they have a lot of different range units. Here you have some crossbowmen who have a medium range where they roll 3 dice. Or this huntsman here who has, he's a flank and a scout. A scout means he can basically move at the beginning of the game before anyone else moves. Like you get a free move at the beginning. You also have your regular units here. You have swordsmen and you have great swords. You also have this wizard who's kind of cool, but anytime he uses magic, he takes a damage. You have these pistoliers who are mobile, which means they can shoot and move at the same time when you activate them rather than doing one or the other. And then you have these Knights Panther, who I like because they have impact 3. Impact means when you go on top of another disc, they immediately take that damage from you. So if the knights land on top of someone, they take 3 damage. And considering they have 5 and then do another 5 in that close combat, that's pretty powerful. Now the heroes from this army here, we have Luther, who's a priest, and when he's empowered, if you get him empowered somehow, this disc gets frenzy and resistant, which is both very useful things. He's resistant to magic and attack. And he has some pretty decent stats, can build a decent army. And then we have Carl, who everyone's always going to be tempted to take because this guy is riding a griffin, has impact 2, and he can move those tokens, the activation tokens, from allies within long range to other allies. So he can basically let allies move more than once. And then we have here Volkmar the Grim, who's a mobile guy who can just basically move and then empower target discs. So he's going around empowering other people, which makes him a good guy to pair up with Luther. And he has 36 points to build an army too, which is good. Then we have the High Elves. And again, it's kind of cool to be able to take a dragon on the board. They have the Sun Dragon here, which is flying and is mobile. He rolls a d6 damage though, so it's kind of random. The game comes with a d6 damage, but at the same time he hits a disc that's within medium range and everyone engaged with that target. So sometimes he will shoot his own guy just to hit all the people who are ganging up on that guy. Then they also have a big war machine, a bolt thrower. They have a sky cutter, which is kind of a cool thing that can move and shoot at enemy targets. It's only 1 die, but it's the fact that it can move pretty quickly and do that. And then they have their own cavalry here, which has an impact of 2. And then more ranged units where they have the Maiden Guard and militia archers, which are useful though because they have the long range combat. And then a High Mage who is resistant to magic themselves, but allies that were within short range of them also are resistant to magic. And then some typical militia spearmen and some Swordsmaster of Horth, but both of those guys are swift. Swift means you can ignore terrain, negative things when you move across them, which can come in really handy. All right, let's look at the heroes for the High Elves. First we have Teclis. And by the way, I have no idea how to pronounce any of these names. He's immune to magic and then does magic for himself. That's useful there, taking himself. Now, if you play against an army that doesn't put a heavy emphasis on magic, but if you do, he's the guy to take. And then we have here this Radiant Lady here who can remove stuff from a target disc within short range. So if you have a broken shield, that's when you lose one of your hit points. She can remove one of those. So she's a healer, and that's a really powerful healer, especially if she protects your bigger hero. Of course, if you take another hero with her, you can imagine they're going to attack her first if possible. And when this guy engages an enemy, you roll a d6. If you roll 6, he just does a killing blow. Now that's a risky thing, a chancing thing, but whew, if you can pull that off, really like this guy. Now the orcs are all about ferocity. Here you have a giant rock lobber that can throw boulders across the board. Cheaper than the other big things that can fire, but then again not as effective. But they have cool cavalry. They have the wolf riders who can shoot, move and shoot. They have boar boys who have an impact 4, which is really deadly and can often kill many of the people that they come across. They have this river troll, and you'll notice that the river troll, several of the tokens have that little metal symbol there. That means you can only have one of these in your army. They're kind of a unique figure. And anyway, this guy here has a short range attack that does 10 damage, but it doesn't scatter. I don't know what he's throwing at you, but you better be careful. And then you have a lot of different, you have black orcs, and then you have boys. They have arrow boys who can fire at people, and orc boys who can fire. This is a big boss. Essentially, he can order your boys to move again, take tokens off of them, which can be useful. And then the orcs also have a magic user themselves, but the magic here is X, which is equal to the number of orc units within short range of this disc. So you got to send this guy up in the middle of your thing, and he's really powerful if you do, but at the same time, you know your enemy is going to be gunning for him. The leaders for this one include Grimgor here, who again can ignore terrain, and when this disc takes one of these damage things, you will remove an activation token. So if he gets killed, he's moving again, which is okay, although he has a great attack ability, 6. Then we have Grom the Paunch, who is impact 3, and he's also relentless. What relentless basically means he doesn't have to stop moving the first time he pins an enemy disc. So he can go land on one disc, do an impact 3, and then go hit another one. But still, here we have a guy riding a dragon. He's flying, he has frenzy, and he has great attack, a 7. And you have to basically kill him 3 times to take him out. Really like this guy. And then Chaos. They have a very powerful gun, the Hell Cannon, which rolls 3 dice, d6 damage all over the board with Siege. However, if you roll 1 or more of those special symbols, you flip it once towards the nearest disc it's not pinning. So that could help you. You could move around, you can move towards the person you're attacking, but it's just... I don't really know what that's supposed to symbolize, but it's kind of a cool ability. And then this guy, the Bloodthirster, who makes all the babies cry. He can fly, frenzy, resistant, and if he takes a wound, then he takes another... I'm sorry, if he does a wound to somebody, if he causes a wound, he deals out another wound. Nasty guy, but he is very expensive. He costs 15. In fact, a lot of the Chaos stuff is kind of expensive. The Blood Crushers, as opposed to the Orcs that are pretty cheap. The Blood Crushers, they have an impact D6, which is neat, but kind of random. Then you got these flying guys with an impact of 2. We have some Marauders. We have Plague Bearers, which here they're slow, which means when they're in hand-to-hand combat, the other person does the damage first, and if it kills the Plague Bearers, they don't do damage back. Okay? And then we have the Sorcerer here, who's a flying magic person, and Flamers, who have ranged attack. Again, these are really good units, the Chaos ones. It's just that they're more expensive, so you can't have as many of them. And this person here has Swift if they're empowered, and they're flying and have good stats with some hit point value here. And then we have I'm not even trying to say his name. When this disc engages an enemy, you will do 1 magic damage to each enemy within short range. And this person... I keep calling them persons. There might be evil goblin demonic stuff here. This guy here is flying in magic 3 and can reinforce a disc within medium range. Normally, you bring discs onto the board in your deployment zones. This guy lets you deploy them basically wherever you want. Really cool. Folks, I really enjoy this. If you listen to my top 10 war games, watch our top 10 war games video, you'll note that this showed up on my list because I like it that much. And when you throw in the expansions, and I'll be doing a separate video for each of the expansions, but that adds even more flavor to this. I like the fact that the rule book was really nice. Basically, it walks you through a sample scenario. So we played through that sample scenario, and as soon as we were done, I was like, all right, let's play. You know, I want to build my own army. And building an army is really easy. There's not a lot of units, so that's helpful too. But the book also comes with pre-built armies for each of the factions or pre-built regiments for each of the factions. But what I really liked was picking my own cards and deciding what cards. The really only detrimental thing is I keep forgetting that rock, paper, scissors thing. What is it now? I said it was a DBS. So devious beats bold, beats stealthy or steady, and everything beats slow. I just wish there was an easier way to acknowledge that. I don't know how. But anyhow, but I do like the card system. The whole game is not a long game. On the box here it says 30 to 60 minutes or 45 to 90 minutes. And it's almost always going to tilt towards 45 unless, of course, you're playing with big, giant regiments. But to me, 2-on-2 is just the way to go with this game. 2 regiments, you got 2 heroes, you match them together, and you got units. I played it that way. It seems the most fun. Now, the game has multiplayer rules, which I haven't jumped into. But if I played just multiplayer, I think I just play teams. You have your guys, I have my guys. But it's neat. I've mixed the armies. I've played with one straight army. I've played this multiple times, and each time I play it, I'm enjoying it more. So somehow, somewhere, I'm going to have to find a spot on my shelf for it. I like the ranged dice. That's cool. Ranged is kind of crazy and wild and random, like ancient fantasy-style ranged combat should be. I like the hand-to-hand combat. It's very deterministic. So it's interesting. We have deterministic combat, and we have combat with dice, which is a really nice medium because it's not all random. And I guess we should pause here and talk about that movement thing. That's cool. It's so easy to do. You pick the disc up, you rotate it, you can move discs anywhere, you don't have to measure. I mean, it is possible for someone who's moving these to slide them a little more, you know, if they're like a cheater person, but you should be playing with those people anyway, and they should also be smacked for cheating. But it's really cool how these guys move around. It's the exact same thing on both sides. You land on them, it's easy to figure out who wins the brawls and the scrums and hand-to-hand combat. I'll probably have to print out a card with all the special symbols on because people always forget what's the difference. In fact, it previously in this video said that Swift meant you could move across terrain. That's Strider that moves across terrain. Swift means you can attack first in combat. So I need to, I guess if I play it enough, I'll have all this stuff memorized. But if I play new people, I want to have like a little chart that shows you what all these symbols mean. Rulebook's really nicely done though. Like I said, sample scenario. Then it adds in all the rules, which is like 2 more pages, and then lots of different things in the glossary. Most of the time you're just looking up what the special abilities do. Good, easy to play. I'm anxious to try more of it, so big recommendation from me, Warhammer Diskwars.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.
There.